I'm your host, John Kramer. This is my guest, Ryan Hamilton. And you're watching The Star Wars Generation. You're watching episode 4 of The Star Wars Generation, where we talk about what it was like to grow up Star Wars. Now, if you'll notice, I'm still wearing the same shirt that I wore when we filmed episode 3. Ryan is also wearing the same shirt that he wore when we watched episode 3, and that's because we have been up all night talking Star Wars. Not really. But we talked so much in the previous episode that I couldn't fit it all into one episode. It was going to go for way too long. So we are just continuing our conversation as episode 4. So, Ryan, like I said last episode, Star Wars came out in an era before the internet. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was pretty much an era before home video, an internet before a lot of things. So,
right.
To have any sort of knowledge of Star Wars, it was a lot harder than it is today.
For sure.
Like for instance, like I said last episode, we talked about Morris Bush, who was the actor who played Dengar in The Empire Strikes Back. And I never would have known that without the internet.
Right.
I wasn't watching movie credits and making comparisons. I didn't even know who played Dengar, let alone the farmer in Scars of Dracula. Now, of course, the way I figured that out was very simple. You go on the internet, you go to the Internet Movie Database, type in Empire Strikes Back,
right.
Look up Dengar, and click on the name
you
Morris
got all the
Bush,
cast.
and then it shows all the movies he's been in. And then I go, oh my gosh, he was in a Hammer horror movie.
Right.
So I don't totally want to sound like grumpy old man. Back when we used to watch Star Wars, I don't want to be that, but at the same time, I kind of do.
Right.
It's a lot easier to be a Star Wars fanatic now than have all the Star Wars knowledge.
Absolutely.
Because, if we wanted to watch Star Wars, the only way we could was go to the movie theater.
Right.
Or rely on a bootleg copy.
Bootleg or buy a $90 copy.
In fact, but it didn't even come out on video till early
We'd have
80s.
to wait. Right.
Yeah. And so, that's why you hear the stories of people going to see Star Wars 30 times.
Right.
You didn't just wait 3 months and wait till it came out on home video.
Right.
We didn't even know home video existed at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So really, if you wanted to know Star Wars knowledge, you had a few sources you could go to because, it was all over in pop culture.
Right.
Like, do you remember watching the making of Star Wars on TV?
I do.
I remember watching it too.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing, though, too, is if you missed it, well, then you missed it.
Yeah, too bad.
It didn't come on again.
Right.
There was no recording it. There was no... luckily my family was on my side. So if they ever found out anything about Star Wars, they made sure to let me know.
Pass it on.
Yeah, exactly. But, back when we were kids, I took a lot of pride in my Star Wars knowledge because it was hard to find it.
Right.
And at one point in time, you actually asked me, within the last probably few years, we don't get together all the time, but you had asked me, pre-internet, how did you know all this stuff?
Right.
I think that's why I took pride in it, because really, I know people today, of the younger generation, who probably know more about Star Wars than I do.
I doubt it.
Thank you. But the point is, it's easy to find now.
Right.
Nowadays, kids go get all 3 videos, and then they binge watch them for 6 hours.
Yeah.
And they learn in 6 hours what it took us 6 years to learn.
You know what, that is a great point. Something that I was actually just thinking about the other day. When we saw A New Hope, we were taking everything at face value.
Absolutely.
We assumed that Darth Vader had killed Luke's father.
Yeah. 100%. There was no question.
No, there was no actually he's your father, and it was true in a way. No, there was nothing like that. It was Darth Vader is evil, and he's the man that killed your dad.
Yeah, absolutely. Right? Unless that was what we just figured was the motivation to go fight the Empire.
Right. Well, yeah.
And now we just killed your aunt and uncle.
So when we saw Empire Strikes Back, we're still under the impression that Darth Vader is the individual that killed Luke's father. And so when we see them on Cloud City and they're battling, and then Darth Vader tells Luke, "I am your father." You know, we didn't have Facebook back then to spoil any of this stuff. When we saw it, it was legitimately, oh my goodness.
It was the biggest shock of our young lives.
Right. And you just cut off your son's hand?
Yeah.
Give me a break.
Exactly.
So, and, you know, we had a pretty good idea of what was going to happen in Return of the Jedi. But even then, there were still these questions of what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Now Luke knows who his dad is. Mm-hmm. We know that...
And even then, in between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, I denied it. I thought it was a
lot
ploy.
of people did.
I thought it was a total ploy.
Right.
You know, so once again, I still didn't fully know what was going to happen in Return of the Jedi because
right.
I seriously, I denied it for 3 years.
Right.
And then when I also heard, you know, as things were getting leaked a little bit and someone telling me that Luke and Leia were brother and sister, I denied that because I thought that was just stupid. But yeah,
well, you know, nowadays, you know, we spoke about the internet and how the internet's kind of ruined some of this for us.
Yeah.
Simply because, you know, going back to what you were saying, for us, there's kind of a badge of honor in being able to say, like, these are things that I knew pre-internet. And now it's out there on the internet, and it kind of cheapens, like, hey, wait a minute, we had to work for that.
I worked really hard for that.
And now you're just putting it out there for public consumption for anybody.
Yeah.
It's just, you know, it has a different feel to it.
You know, back when we were kids, I mean, it was, you know, like you're talking of, this satisfaction of learning something. You know, there was some real satisfaction. Like, if I could come to school with knowing something about Star Wars that nobody else knew,
right.
I mean, it was gold. It was. Because, you know, that was actually one of the ways I learned a lot about Star Wars was recess. Because we talk about it.
Yeah.
You know, because at recess, I mean, of course, we'd play tag and we did the other things, but we talked about movies a lot, too. And when I say we, it wasn't you and me. We actually went to different elementary schools, in spite of the fact that we grew up just houses apart. I mean, I remember hearing about The Wrath of Khan at recess, you know, about the ant lions digging in the ears.
Yeah.
And I remember learning about the fog. I remember, you know, because I had a friend who could see rated R movies. Okay. And so he saw Friday the 13th Part 2 with Corey Feldman.
Okay.
You know, so he told me about that, and I loved to hear it. They'd scare me, but I loved to hear it.
Right.
You know, Raiders of the Lost Ark was the talk of many school bus rides home, you know, for weeks.
Right.
Anyway, it was always fun to learn something before your friends did. Now, okay, so let's... Han Solo. He is Corellian, right?
Right.
Well, how do we know?
You know, that's a good question.
Like nowadays, it's common knowledge.
Right.
Everybody just assumes he's Corellian.
How did we know that back then?
Exactly. You know, you go type it in the internet, and it'll immediately just say Han Solo, smuggler, Corellian. You know, that's just...
Shoots first.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. Because in the movie Star Wars, and also in the novelization of Star Wars, Han does talk of, you know, when Obi-Wan and Luke first meet him. And he says, you know, well, I've got the Millennium Falcon. You know, what, you've never heard of the Millennium Falcon? That's the ship that made the Kessel Run in 12 parsecs.
Right.
You know, and I've outrun Imperial ships. You know, I'm not just the bulk cruisers.
Right.
But the big Corellian ones.
Yeah.
You know, and that's where you hear Corellian, and that's it.
And that's it.
But when I was in 4th grade, the teacher was trying to teach us managing money. And so we had check registers and we had play money. And we would, you know, we could buy things with this money. And every Friday we were allowed to have an auction. And we'd bring our junk. And then we could buy each other's junk. Yeah.
Okay.
And so this is in 4th grade. So this is 1981 maybe.
Okay.
So The Empire Strikes Back has come out. But I bought a book from somebody.
Okay.
Let me reach in my magical bag of goodies over here. You can't see it because the cover has since ripped off, but it's Han Solo and the Lost Legacy. So, in fact, if you watch the opening credits of this show, you'll see the cover of this in that.
I was going to say it looks familiar.
There we go. Maybe you've probably seen it in my house. I've had this since I was, you know, 9 years old, 10 years old, something like that. The book actually came out in 1979. It was the last of 3 books about Han Solo. Let me just get to page 1, if I may. So, page 1, paragraph 2. The leads, now gathered together in precise order, sprang free of his fingers, going every which way. With a scalding Corellian malediction, Han shoved against the machine's undercarriage, and his repulsor lift mechanic's creeper slid out from under the airspeeder. So in this book, at least that's where I learned, he was Corellian. You know, it never says it anywhere in the movies. And so now I've read this book, and I mean, I've read 1 page of the book, and I get to go running to my friends now, and I get to say, he's Corellian! Okay, now while we're talking that, I'll ask my next trivia question then.
Okay.
If Han Solo is Corellian, well, what's Boba Fett?
Well, there's a lot of speculation.
Okay.
So the reason why I say that is there are discussions about whether Boba Fett now is actually the same Boba Fett that we have been introduced to
Okay.
throughout time. There are stories that the person who is in Boba Fett's costume may not actually be Boba Fett. So that's why I say that.
Okay.
Certainly the outfit, the armor that he's wearing is Mandalorian.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just reach in my magic bag of goodies again.
Yeah.
And that's when I pull out Marvel Comics,
Right.
number 68.
Uh-huh.
Now, once again, I don't know if this is the first place that it mentions it, but this is the first place I sure knew it, because it doesn't mention it anywhere in the movies where Boba Fett's from. In fact, we hardly know anything about Boba Fett.
Right. We know he's a bounty hunter, and that's pretty much it.
Absolutely. And we know he's probably the most awesome character in the movie.
Well, there's no question about it.
Absolutely.
You know, I just have to say this before I forget.
Go on.
But I think you'll find that.
Well, let's just hold it up for the camera to
My
see.
wallet.
His Mandalorian wallet.
So now it seems even more silly that I couldn't say that he was Mandalorian.
Oh no, that's totally fine.
That's what you get for overthinking things.
Yeah, exactly. Well, or else you just know more than I do, thanks to where we
The
this
internet.
feature. Yeah, exactly. I don't know how many comic books you collected, but I know that you and I both still loved
Right.
them as kids and into our teen years.
Right.
Whether it was actually loving the comic books or at least the heroes or something to that effect. In here, this comic came out between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi.
Right.
So in the comic books, after Empire Strikes Back, well, Han got frozen. So
Right.
Han pretty much disappears for those
Which
years
again
in
was
comic books.
another issue. We didn't know what was going to happen come Return of the Jedi. What was Han Solo's condition going to be?
Absolutely.
I mean, obviously, we hoped for the best.
Was it as simple as he'd be blind, or was he dead? I mean,
Right.
I realized that they did say he was in perfect hibernation, but we never knew.
Right.
I mean, because how long was he in it? Yeah, he might be in hibernation now, but wait till 4
Right.
years later when he's dead because he hasn't eaten anything. Yeah, so
Right.
we had no idea. I mean, obviously, someone watching the movies in a 6-hour binge,
They've got it all.
yeah,
laid
they already
out
know.
for
They already know that Vader is Luke's father.
Their
They know-
anxiety is for 20 seconds while they load
Yeah,
the next
exactly.
DVD or just skip to the next movie.
Yeah, so like I say, for 3 years I denied that Vader was Luke's father.
Right.
And same thing for 3 years. I mean, what's happening to Han? And so
Right.
yeah, exactly, just like you said.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, with Boba Fett here, and you were talking of this being Mandalorian armor.
Right.
Well, that's actually what we learn in this comic book, because what happens is they have figured out, because in the comics they're trying to find Han.
Right.
They have learned that Boba Fett has teamed up with one of 3 bounty hunters. Now, of
Okay.
course, that's not in the movies, that's just the comic books. He's teamed up with either Bosk, IG-88, or Dengar.
Okay.
So our characters here decide they're going to go hunt those bounty hunters down with hopes of finding
Okay.
Boba Fett.
Interesting.
And finding him before he gets to Tatooine. So Luke and R2 team up to go find a bounty hunter. Lando and Chewbacca team up to go find one.
Mm-hmm.
And Leia and 3PO team up. Go to hunt down Dengar
Uh-huh.
on Boba Fett's home planet. And so right here it even says, the spacecraft diverge, each jumping into a different sector of hyperspace on a journey which, some while later, takes Princess Leia's ship to Mandalore. According to intelligence reports, Dengar's latest hunt brought him here. Now suddenly I know
Mm-hmm.
where Boba Fett's from.
Right.
Because prior to this, we had no idea where Boba Fett was from.
Right.
Because nothing had been said. So now once again, I've got this great thing I can run to school and I can tell all my friends about.
Right.
And then as we jump on over here, when she's trying to find Dengar, she actually sees slave trading going on.
Okay.
And so she gets all angry and she goes in and tries to break up the slave trading and free the slaves. And then suddenly Boba Fett comes flying in. And he saves the day, because he's got guns and she's going, this is the guy I want to kill.
Uh-huh.
I don't know what I'm going to do here. And then she ends up, wow, Boba Fett. And he's, looking around and, oh, the armor. No, I'm not Boba Fett. I'm Fen Shaisa.
Okay.
And then you find out that, yes, he's Mandalorian and it's Mandalorian armor.
Okay.
So they're all wearing it. In fact, there's a scene right here, which is also in my opening credits, if you'll watch, where you can see
Oh, yeah.
all of them in their Mandalorian armor.
Uh-huh.
And they're the Super Commandos.
Right.
According to this, I'll just read it to you just so you can see. Long years ago, when I was part of a group of super commandos charged with the ultimate protection of Mandalore, it was a job I was proud of, But when Palpatine made his move to set up a galactic empire, the government of Mandalore sent us into the Clone Wars on the Emperor's side.
Mm-hmm.
So, actually, according to this, Boba Fett was in the Clone Wars. So, amongst your siblings, did any of them ever subscribe to a magazine called Dynamite?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
so we had Dynamite magazines around my house all the time.
I can remember one with John Travolta on the cover.
Are you really saying that? I mean, did you look in my magic bag of goodies?
No.
Because seriously, if you really didn't
That's
look
the
down,
same one.
If you did, this sounds so scripted. It really does, but it is not scripted at
No,
all.
I had no idea.
Stacy had a total crush on John Travolta, my
Okay.
sister Stacy. But yeah, we had Dynamite all the time, and it was put out by Scholastic, so you get it through school.
Right. That was right next to the hot dog with Tom and Jerry on the cover of it in our house.
The hot dog magazine.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah.
Wow, that's just so. I thought for sure you were looking down.
No,
and saw,
I have no idea what other things you have.
That
over
is
there.
just absolutely silly. I can't believe it. But I mean, this is where it was full of all kinds of fun little things that were.
Yeah.
Like one was Magic Wanda's card trick. You know, when you
Uh-huh.
learn her magic tricks. There was, and now a word from our sponsor.
Uh-huh.
And it was just a silly commercial. You know, that they'd make up.
But that was an actual commercial.
Yeah, it was. It was Alpo.
Yeah.
With
and
Lauren
I remember
Green.
Yeah. Was it Lauren Green?
Yeah, but
Okay.
here it's Lawn Green, they call it. But yeah. It was totally like play off of a real commercial.
Uh-huh.
But then they just make it silly.
Okay.
And they would, I guess there's a calendar here, but there were all sorts of things. You know, bummers, little one-line. Well, it was kind of like two-liners. Don't you hate it when? And then it would say something.
Okay.
But this is where I also first learned about Daredevil. Because they would reprint Daredevil comics in here.
Uh-huh.
They may have done others. I just remember
Uh-huh.
Daredevil. I knew my few comic book heroes, like from Marvel. Of course, you knew Spider-Man, Fantastic Four, X-Men.
But that was due, for me anyway,
Mhm.
that was due in large part to the Saturday morning or the after-school cartoons.
Absolutely.
That's where I got my information
Yeah,
from.
that's
for
the
the
most
most
I got
part.
my information.
Mm-hmm.
So in here, I learned about Daredevil. And so I was once again this thing, I could go to school, and I could tell the kids something at recess they didn't know. No, there's a hero Daredevil, he's blind. And so this is where I learned about it.
Uh-huh.
But it also not only had that, but it would, as you see, it would introduce you to pop culture.
Uh-huh.
So like here's another one over here, of course, with, was he also buy the hot dog with...
I remember that one, but that one was obviously not the first one that came to my mind.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So once again, you've got just more pop culture. But then, who can forget this one? Well, Chewbacca with Sean Cassidy.
Yeah, because, they're good friends.
And they go way back.
Uh-huh.
Now let me read this to you, because this was one of those situations where I came to school and blew minds.
I had some information.
Yeah, so here, let me flip to the story here.
What year is this?
This is actually about, let me see, it's probably 78, 79,
Okay.
somewhere in there.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see if I can find this. 1978. So Star Wars has been out for a year.
Uh-huh.
Now mind you, this stuff was common knowledge today. Anyone who's seen Revenge of the Sith knows this.
Right.
But when 1978, 1 year after the movie came out, to know this, oh yeah, you were the hero for who knows how long. Let me read it. One idea Lucas suggests for a sequel would be the story of the mystical Jedi Knights and how they came to possess the Force. This movie would feature Ben Kenobi, Luke Skywalker's father, and Darth Vader as young knights. And
Wait a minute, what? So who again?
Ben Kenobi,
Yeah.
Luke Skywalker's father, and Darth Vader.
Interesting.
Interesting if he had the whole story planned out from the
Right.
beginning. Either he's trying to not ruin it for us,
Right.
but I don't know. Anyway, as young knights.
Mm-hmm.
And it would explain why Vader wears that eerie black mask in Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
Lucas says that in the sequel, Vader kills Luke's father. Then Ben Kenobi and Vader battle each other, just as they did years later in Star Wars. But this time, Ben almost kills Vader. Vader falls into a volcanic pit and gets fried, leaving his face horribly disfigured. From that time on, he must wear a mask, both to help him breathe and to spare others the sight of his ghastly face.
Right.
This is 1978.
Right.
And so to know that...
But it would also explain what you were saying earlier about questioning the validity of Darth Vader's story to
Absolutely.
Luke Skywalker, because
Uh-huh.
it doesn't fit with
what I had learned here. Thank you.
Dynamite
Exactly.
is a much better authority on these things. than any internet story or otherwise.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I mean, because this was coming from Lucas himself too. So which one's lying? Is it Dynamite or is it the movie? And I thought for sure it was The Empire Strikes Back because there's no way Vader's Luke's father. He's evil. Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you. It probably was, something that subconsciously I thought no, but I already read that they're in a
Right.
scene together.
Mm-hmm.
I already read that he kills Luke's
Right.
father. So
Well, and Obi-Wan told us as much.
yeah, well,
In
exactly.
Star Wars.
Exactly. So here, this is just confirming that.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever mail in? I mean, actually, did you have a lot of the figures? I remember Mike had tons. I had a number of them.
Right.
I remember your cousin throwing Chewbacca into the bushes.
That was not a cousin.
Oh.
That was actually somebody that my brother was tending. I don't know how that, like it was the one tending job that Matt ever had. So it was basically a younger neighbor boy that threw my Chewbacca in this bush. I
Well,
mean, there
exactly.
was no way to find it.
No, there was no way at all.
Yeah.
A brown figure in a green and brown bush.
Right.
I mean, did you ever rip those bushes out? Are
Yes.
they still there? Did you ever find Chewbacca?
If it was found, it was not with me present. I think what
Chewbacca.
we found one time was a silver. So I don't know if it was C-3PO or another protocol droid, but it was something along those lines.
Well, was it? Okay, now something else. We're talking about that because I was just asking if you collected a lot of the figures, but you had a toy none of us had.
And I didn't like it.
It was the droid builder.
It was kind of like.
And that's why nobody else had it, because it really wasn't. Because I remember in the commercials they would say you can build R2-D2,
Right.
but it wasn't the real R2-D2.
It wasn't the same. And you're right, they did. They marketed it as an opportunity to make your own droids.
Even though it wasn't even in the movie.
No, it wasn't in the movie.
There were plenty of things that weren't in the movie, though. But yeah.
And the droid builder, while you could make different droids, I mean, they'd fall apart just like that.
Exactly.
They wouldn't stay together.
That's why it wasn't really R2-D2.
Exactly. But it did have kind of a cool little. I remember it had like a ramp and then
have a crane?
almost like a crane, and then like a pit area. So I mean, it did offer some pretty cool areas, and it did have like the foot pegs and things like that where you could stand.
Oh, stick the figures
up.
on. Yes. So then it sounds like you didn't do any of the mail away figures. Did you mail away for any of them?
No, I didn't get into any of that with proof of purchases or with anything, quite honestly.
Because the reason I ask is because I did that.
Okay.
Now, one of the things that was so hard back then was because you send your 6 proof of purchase seals or whatever it was you needed, and then you mail them in, and then 6 to 8 weeks later.
Yeah.
So like if you mailed this in May, the beginning of summer, your summer was like 2/3 of the way over before you finally got this figure. And I remember that. I remember just feeling like it is August now.
Right.
I mean, and imagine if Amazon worked that way today.
Yeah.
They'd be out of business. It's amazing what we put up with.
And so the
for Star
characters
Wars.
that you received from this, were they good characters, or was it like the Cloud City Guard, or what?
It depended on, because there were like one of them that I didn't do, but one was Boba Fett. When Star Wars first came out, and so they put out figures and they keep building more and more, and then suddenly it was mail in 6 of these and get figured from the new movie, Boba Fett.
Mm-hmm.
That was one where the missile launched out of the back.
Okay, yeah.
So they had a 12-inch figure with a launching missile, and then the smaller figure, and it was a choking hazard, so they had to stop making them.
Okay.
So my Boba Fett was not the mail-in one. It was just one at the store. It did not launch
It
the
didn't
missile.
launch, but I remember that they did have some that did.
Yeah.
That would launch.
But my mail-in figures were Admiral Akbar
Okay.
and the Emperor.
Interesting.
And so to me, they were cool. They were cool enough
Yeah.
characters. And what was even more cool is I got them before Return of the Jedi came out.
Right.
And so, now when you ordered it, it came in just a little white box, a little rectangular white box. And you'd open it up and it would have the figure in a plastic.
So it wasn't in like the Kenner.
No, it did not have the back. It was just, so you just get the figure in a bag. And it came with a little booklet and also a little, sheet of paper about this big. And if you look at the monitor here, it looked like that. Do you remember that?
I do. In fact, I seem to remember you had a poster.
I actually didn't have a poster of that. I had that. In fact, I've got it right here. And I most definitely had it hanging in my room.
On the back of your door?
Oh, I'm sure I had it on the back of my door. I'm sure I had it on my wall. I specifically remember having it on my bulletin board at one point in time. I mean, I'm sure I had it everywhere.
Down in the basement, if I remember.
Yeah, I'm sure I had it down in the basement. I'm sure I had it when I was upstairs in the little blue room. I most definitely remember having it when I was in the north bedroom on the far side of the house. And I was always told to save it because it said Revenge of the Jedi.
Right.
But I needed to do more than just save it. You know, I needed to actually keep it in good condition. And as you can see, I did not. This has most definitely seen better days. Now, as I've just learned from my son over here, he didn't know it was called Revenge of the Jedi
Right.
before. See, I thought that was probably more commonly known, even amongst the little kids.
Uh-huh.
At least the 20-year-olds, they all know now that it was, I mean, they probably know that before they
Right.
even saw the movie, that it was called Revenge of the Jedi.
Uh-huh.
You know, until George Lucas then decided that Jedis don't get revenge.
Right.
So it became Return of the Jedi,
Mm-hmm.
and thus now why Episode 3 is Revenge of the Sith.
Right.
But this is just one more of those things as a kid,
Right.
you know, that was just amazing when you found out. There had been some commercials out that said Revenge of the Jedi. I think there might have even been a few figures that had Revenge of the
On the
Jedi
back.
written on the card. And they put out some posters.
Uh-huh.
But I remember still learning, you know, first off it was cool to know that it was Revenge of the Jedi before.
Right.
But then also you were cool to learn when they changed it, you know, that it was now Return of the Jedi.
Right.
So, I mean, I was actually really surprised when my son over here was so surprised to learn it was called Revenge of the Jedi. In fact, I think I hurt his feelings when I was telling him to be quiet. But, you know, but that was one of those things, of course, that to us was this,
Right.
you know, but now it's so readily available. Back in the old days, you know, like, they used to do programs for movies that would tell about the movie.
Okay.
And Star Wars did the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
But when it came to The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, they actually put out a full-blown magazine.
Okay.
And, well, reaching my magic bag of goodies, and I have the official collector's
Oh, wow.
Empire Strikes Back.
Uh-huh.
And what it is, it's filled with, like it has a synopsis of the story.
Uh-huh.
It tells about some of the characters. It has the old Ralph
Ralph
McQuarrie
McQuarrie.
paintings in them.
Nice. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely cool.
My favorite.
So cool. So cool. You know, it tells about, you know, a little bit about George Lucas, tells about some of the other people involved in the movie. Now, it didn't reveal any movie secrets.
Uh-huh.
So this wasn't one of those things where I could go to school and brag about what I knew. In fact, even in this, it doesn't even say that Vader is Luke's father.
Uh-huh.
You know, because they weren't going to reveal that. I mean, that was
Yeah,
that was the biggest blow of any movie ever
Yeah.
to learn that.
Uh-huh.
But one thing I did learn was about the deaths involved with The Empire Strikes Back.
The deaths
Yeah, actual people dying.
in the movie.
Not in the movie. People involved in the production.
Right. Yeah.
Who died? Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting.
Okay.
Earlier we talked about Twilight Zone and
Yes.
some of these other movies, and in the Twilight Zone, the very first.
Vic Morrow.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Where'd it go?
Helicopter
Helicopter crash.
on set, killing
Two
he
little
and
kids.
two little kids.
Where'd it
There
go,
was a
though?
whole big story about how
I'm
these
very
kids
impressed,
were,
but still, yeah.
were hired
Underage, and they were,
yes.
yep, I
And
mean, of course,
dancers.
kids are underage, but they were not supposed to be working the
Right.
hours they were working.
Right.
You can't do nighttime
Yeah.
shots, all those things like
And
that.
so they had to rewrite the ending of the episode. The ending of the episode ends with him being captured and he's thrown on a train.
I remember the train.
And he's screaming out to his friends at the bar, and of course they don't hear him, and so he's gone.
Uh-huh.
But in reality, the helicopter crash wasn't supposed to be a crash.
Mm-hmm.
It was supposed to be an ending to the episode where he
Really?
was supposed to rescue these kids. And then I can't remember exactly what was supposed to happen, but yeah, they had to change the ending because
Yeah.
the actor had been killed in that accident.
Do you know who his daughter is?
No,
Jennifer Jason Leigh.
you're kidding.
I'm not kidding
Wow.
you. Once again, you know, here I am
Yeah.
criticizing the internet, but that's where I learned that. Yeah, you know,
Okay, so in Empire Strikes Back,
In Empire
there
Strikes
are
Back, there were production
crew
deaths.
who died.
yeah, and it wasn't
Interesting.
actually while filming. It wasn't like
Okay.
that. It just so happened the death occurred
Mhm.
while this was going on. So the first one would be the original screenwriter.
Okay.
So pre-Lawrence Kasdan,
Uh-huh.
there was a woman. Her name was Lee Brackett.
Okay.
And Lee Brackett was one of those who, you know, wrote for, you know, Strange Tales and Amazing Stories.
Okay, yeah,
those
yeah.
old pulp magazines
Right.
from the 40s, 50s, 60s.
Uh-huh.
And she got asked, because obviously George Lucas was inspired by those. and she got asked to write the screenplay. And she had already written screenplays before. And so George Lucas said, I'm going to call her in to write The Empire Strikes Back. Like right here, I'll just read this. The first draft was produced by veteran scripter Lee Brackett, who had written the screenplays for Rio Bravo and The Big Sleep. The Empire Strikes Back was her last assignment before her untimely death. This left Lucas in a difficult position. So ultimately, the difficult position is he had to then find somebody else to write it. So he then hired Lawrence Kasdan, who had done, I don't know what he'd done at this point in time, but he'd probably done Body Heat, which was a remake of a film noir while we're talking that, because The Big Sleep was one of the big famous film noirs. Or films noir, whatever the proper way is to say that. But he had done Body Heat, which was a remake of...
that one you're gonna be on your own on that one.
Give me just a minute here. It was a remake of... It was a remake of Double Indemnity.
Oh, yeah.
Which is Fred MacMurray, I believe. So... I had a hard time watching those because I just see Fred MacMurray from My Three Sons and The Shaggy Dog. But that was Lee Brackett.
Okay.
And in fact, like over here in my bag of goodies, I have a book by Lee Brackett. It's called The Nemesis from Terra.
Okay.
And Terra, of course, meaning Earth.
Right.
It's someone who's going to take over Mars. And truth be told, I hated this story.
Okay.
Some guys, it's just this concept of it's, some guy's about to take over Mars and then sacrifices it all for love. And it's like, I don't want that in my sci-fi. But the reason why I still have this book is because it was a double book.
Oh.
By a guy named Edmund Hamilton. Any relation to you?
Not that I know of.
There we go. Well, Edmund Hamilton was of relation to Lee Brackett. They were married.
Okay.
And so...
It looks an awful lot like the Millennium Falcon.
Exactly.
Maybe
So
that's the aluminum one.
The aluminum falcon.
Sorry, I stole that from, what is that, Robot Chicken or something like that.
Very good. So, the story was both stories were written in 1961 and published in one of those pulp magazines. But they actually printed this double book in 1989. So post Star Wars.
Right.
And obviously a total rip-off of the Millennium Falcon. Could it be a bigger rip-off of the Millennium Falcon?
Yeah. No, it could not.
Yeah, exactly. Without actually getting sued.
Right.
Yeah. So, Lee Brackett died.
Yeah.
But there was one more. There was a guy by the name of John Barry. And he was, I think, set design. Well, anyway, I'll just read right here. It says, Variety reported that he died with suddenness that, had it been written into a film plot, would have been called implausible dramatic license. It was just so crazy the way he died.
Spontaneous combustion.
Yeah, it was our gardening accident. Anyway, he arrived on the day complaining of a headache. Later, he was running a temperature of 105 degrees and was under medical supervision. By 2 a.m. the following morning, he was dead.
Wow.
So once again, I would never have known that.
Right.
But yet here's one more thing, one more way of knowing something that nobody else is going to know about Star Wars.
It's interesting that they would publish that in a magazine about. I mean, it's nice. I didn't know any of that about another writer, before.
That's actually what's kind of nice. Yeah. Is, but I was going to show you. Sorry, I meant to show you this on the book. Author of the Empire Strikes Back screenplay.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, they actually put that on there as some selling point to try and do that. Even though she didn't write the final version.
Right, so it makes you wonder where the variations were.
Yeah, I would bet now it's probably online somewhere. But, the internet, you'll find something.
Right.
And there's probably somebody out there who has read it and can one-up me on it all. But, so, now, my last thing from my bag of goodies as to how I got my Star Wars knowledge.
Okay.
And I don't know, do you remember this one? The Jedi Master's
I
Quiz
remember
Book.
that.
This is where I got so much of my information.
Oh, I'm sure.
But one of the real important things I learned here was which actors played the characters.
Okay.
Because there were some things like, Mark Hamill, Carrie Fisher, I knew Harrison Ford. But then getting to the point of learning that David Prowse was the inside of James Earl Jones, even though if I had watched the credits, but I wasn't paying attention to the credits.
Right.
And I couldn't just, go back and rewatch them because I was in the movie theater.
Yeah.
And I couldn't go to Internet Movie Database because it didn't exist.
Right. Yeah.
So this is where I learned that. And the most important one I learned was that Jeremy Bulloch played Boba Fett. But that was one that wasn't in the major credits, like at the
At
the
the
movie
end,
ends and they flash the big names across. He was in the big long list that comes later.
Right, with the key grip.
Yeah, with the key grip and with Morris Bush, who played Dengar.
Yeah.
Ryan, we've run out of time again.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we covered all we needed to, and of course, more. So, thanks for coming up. I really do appreciate it. And the thing is during this talking, I've come to find out that there's plenty more I could have you on to talk about. So thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Once again, all my pleasure. Thank you for watching episode 4 of the Star Wars Generation. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to post in the comment section below. But this time, I want you to share with me your favorite thing that you learned about Star Wars that isn't a part of the movies. So, for now, good night, good luck,
And may the Force be with you, always.